Hello, everyone. We have a very special program today as we deal with the repercussions of this war, the longest war since 1948. You see the international pressure rising on Israel, mainly in the United States. Over the last 3 weeks, it's been constant barrage of criticism, attacks of the Israeli government, its policies, estimations that it wouldn't win the war, and all of this probably leads Hamas to take its time, to see the wind in its back, and this is very, very problematic. I will also say that beyond Gaza, there's the issue of sanction waivers to Iran, $10 billion going that way, Iranian activities in the region, not just nuclear, but certainly in directing the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea that everyone knows about. But there's much international cynicism around this. And if you had any question about that, the fact that Iran was elected to head the disarmament committee in the UN this week just comes to show you how cynical the international system is. So we are here to work with our friends and build alliances for Israel. The German chancellor was in Israel just a few days ago. You know that France, the UK, and the United States worked together to convene a Security Council meeting on the issue of gender violence, which of course is the issue that we will be discussing today. So we advise everyone to hold tight, to continue your work in supporting Israel, not to listen to cynical voices out there that are criticizing what Israel is doing. The consensus in Israel is clear that the Hamas threat should be removed, and that's what we're all focused on here. So without further ado, Marta, our director in Central and Eastern Europe, will introduce our wonderful speaker today and very painful topic. Marta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're joining us today. I would like to welcome all the participants in this very special briefing that we hold on the occasion of International Women's Day. My name is Marta Kubica, and I'm the CEO of ELNET in Central Eastern Europe, and we had a pleasure of hosting our today's guest in Warsaw at the beginning of January on her first ever visit to Poland, which was very significant and very moving. But today we're meeting on, as David mentioned, very difficult occasion, and we all remember October 7 very vividly. And even though the Hamas massacre was live streamed, we all remember horrible videos of girls being abducted, wearing clothes covered in blood, and all the horrific videos that are still available online. Many voices all over the world are either doubting the events of October 7 or completely forgetting Israeli girls and women. There are still 134 hostages in Gaza, including babies and elderly, and we hope and we pray every day for their well-being and safe return home. And this is why we created this event, to shed light and expose the crimes committed by Hamas, especially on Israeli women and girls on October 7, and afterwards, as we know from testimonies of those girls who were released. But before we start our event, I would like to warn you that some of the content actually might be very graphic and disturbing. So I suggest that if at any point you feel it's necessary for you, you can put the Zoom on silent and come back to us later. We're very, very lucky and very happy to be hosting today's speaker, member of the Knesset, Shelly Tal Meron, representing Yesh Atid, and also a member of Gender Equality, Immigration, and Science and Technology Committee in the Knesset, who is leading the way for women's advocacy in the wake of October 7. Shelly Tal Meron serves as the head of the Knesset Caucuses for victims of sexual and gender-based violence of October 7th war and for hostages in captivity. Before entering politics, Shelly served as a captain in the Israeli Air Force for 7 years, and she was an ops officer as well as the spokesperson at the IDF. She was also a business development manager in the high-tech industry in Southeast Asia for over a decade, and political activist and community leader in Tel Aviv within the PTAs. Shelly Meron is also a mother of 2 daughters. And Shelly, before like after October 7, you have become one of the most visible members of the Knesset who speak up for hostages and their families and for the victims of sexual violence. You have traveled abroad all over Europe. We were happy to host you in Warsaw, but also Paris and Berlin. And I understand you're also coming to Rome and to other places. You spoke on behalf, in all those places, you spoke on behalf of the hostage families, and you have established the two caucuses that I just mentioned. Can we start our conversation with, I would say, a personal approach? And can you tell us how October 7 changed your life?
Wow, what a big question. First of all, hello, everyone. It's such an honor for me to meet you all, and thank you for joining this meeting. I'm very privileged to attend this meeting and to speak with you all. And of course, I want to thank ELNET, David and Malta and all the team around the world, because we fully cooperate together on behalf of the state of Israel. As you all know, we've been going through some trying times these past 5 months. So before I answer the question, I just want to mention that today is the 164th day since this war started, and we still have 134 hostages in Gaza, among them 19 women, most of them young women. 14 of them are still alive, as far as we know. We're not sure, but that's what we know. And we're praying for their safe return home every day. I'm wearing yellow today because the families of the hostages requested us today to mention the hostages by wearing something yellow, because that's the sign for the hostages. And you know, in Israel, we're celebrating next week Purim, and people are dressing up with costumes. So we decided to dress in yellow today to remember our hostages on this day. So you asked a very important question. I think the entire state of Israel is not the same anymore. I think all of us have changed dramatically forever, since this was the biggest massacre in our history since the Holocaust. And we've never had over 1,200 people being murdered on one day in the state of Israel. And I think that, you know, that day was, it was a very difficult day. And, you know, we had alarms go off at 6:30 in the morning, sirens everywhere. In the beginning, we thought it was a missile attack. And within a short amount of time, we realized that this is something different. This is war. And I can tell you that as a mother of two, like Martha has mentioned before, my daughters are changed forever, because, you know, I live in Tel Aviv, which is a very liberal Western city in Israel. It's in the center of Israel. And my two daughters, who are 17 and 13, are afraid. They're not the same girls anymore. They're afraid of being alone at night. They're afraid of the dark. They're afraid that terrorists are going to come into our home. And I think for the past 5 months, we've all been traumatized. So Israel right now is a nation in trauma, not post-trauma, trauma. We're not there yet. And I think, you know, the narrative around the world shifted very, very quickly. Maybe on the second or third day of the war, the narrative around the world shifted to speaking about Gaza. But for us, we are all still on October 7th. And that's a very huge difference. And there is no balance between the two things, because the world is not speaking about what happened on October 7th, unfortunately. So whenever I go around the world to different countries, it's my obligation, first of all, to be the voice of the hostages, because they have no voice, and to remind the world what happened on October 7th, because not only did we have this horrible massacre, this sadistic, barbaric, monstrous massacre, but also we had many, many instances where we had sexual assault, rape, mutilation, and different horrific things that happened to our women. Some of them very young girls, teenagers in the kibbutzim, some very young women in the Nova Festival. Most of them, unfortunately, were murdered, so they can no longer tell the story. And it's my obligation to tell their stories. And we still have the hostages in Gaza who are going through this hell every day. And we know this for a fact because we have hostages that return to Israel and are sharing the stories of what's happening in Gaza. And we know for a fact that there's sexual abuse going on there and rape. And, you know, as Martha said, I have two lobbies within the Knesset. The first one is for the hostages, and the second one is for gender-based violence against women during this war. And I had assemblies in the Knesset where I had hostages who returned, who came to the assembly, and they spoke about what happened there. One of them, her name is Aviva. She's a 64-year-old woman, a very, very brave woman. She was abducted together with her husband. By the way, her husband is still there. She was released, but he is still there. And she and her daughters are fighting. Really, they're amazing women. They're inspiring. And they're doing everything in their power to bring the hostages back home. And Aviva spoke to us and told us that when she was in Gaza, she felt like she was the mother of the young hostages, because a lot of these young ladies are 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And she felt like she had to protect them. She had to be their mother. And she gave us an example of one girl who went to the restroom. You know, you have to ask for permission to go to the restroom, and then the terrorist would come. It could be an hour later or 4 hours later, whenever he decides. And when he took her to the bathroom, when she came back, she was very upset, and she shared with her that she was raped. And Aviva also spoke about the fact that they're dressing up these women as dolls. They're abusing them, they're hitting them, they're doing horrible things. They're making them take showers and watching them. And, you know, I don't want to get into too many details, but it's truly, truly devastating, horrific, and inexplicable. And I feel like we have to speak up about this issue because the world is very silent about this subject. Now, you probably heard that UN Women finally issued a report about what had happened on October 7th and what's happening in Gaza right now. It took them a long while to get this report done. In the beginning, I must tell you, I issued letters to UN Women and to Me Too and all the women's rights organizations and to human rights organizations, many, many letters. And I signed this letter together with other members of the Knesset, and they were completely ignored. So nobody answered my letters. And all these organizations that I would fight together with them before the war were completely silent. Nobody stood up for our women. And we felt very betrayed because Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. It's a Western country, it's a liberal country, it's the startup nation, and we consider ourselves to be an advanced country. And, you know, we would fight for women's rights around the world. And when something horrible would happen to women anywhere in the world, we would fight for them. And suddenly this happened to us, and we were completely ignored. And we truly felt betrayed. And then we had a visit here from UN Women, and they investigated what they could investigate, and they issued this report. Now, you know, I'm happy that this report came out because it's important that it came out, but it's only one step, and it's very late. And we expect UN Women to do much more, not only UN Women, but other organizations as well. So it's been a process, and I've been speaking about the subject everywhere that I can. I've been to Poland, I've been to Berlin and Paris. Next week, I'm going to Geneva, and then maybe Paris, and then I have Rome. And I try to do my best to speak up on behalf of our women, and of course, on behalf of all of our hostages. And it's important for me to say that, you know, there are talks right now about a deal. You probably heard. And there's a delegation that is now starting to negotiate. For me, it's very difficult to use the word deal because this is not a business deal. It's not a real estate deal. These are human lives. These are human beings who were taken in their pajamas on a Saturday morning barefoot to Gaza. These people deserve to come back home to their loved ones. They deserve to have a future, and it's our obligation to bring them back home. And my request everywhere I go around is for people to, first of all, speak up and talk about this issue of the hostages. And of course, speak up about the rape and the sexual violence that's going on in Gaza and that went on October 7th, of course. And to ask people around the world to stand up with justice. You know, there is no justification to any kind of sexual abuse, that the use of the sexual violence as war weapons. These are war crimes, and there is no justification for this. And it doesn't matter which nationality you are. It doesn't matter if you're Israeli, if you're Palestinian, if you're French, if you're American. It doesn't matter. No woman should go through what these women went through and are going through right now as we speak. And, you know, today, we always have the families of the hostages going around the Knesset here. Of course, we always welcome them with open arms and try to embrace them and help them as much as we can. And today we stood up and mentioned the birthday of two of our hostages. One of them is Doron Steinbacher. She's 31 today. And the second one is Shlomo Mansour, who is 86 today. So just imagine and look at the differences in ages. You have a young lady who is 31, her whole life ahead of her, and an 86-year-old man, a grandfather who has, I think, 12 grandchildren. And who deserves to be taken as a hostage when you're 86, after everything you went through in life, to spend 164 days in tunnels with no air and no food and no water and no sanitary conditions and no medical care? They're not receiving any medicine, and the Red Cross has not visited them, and they're not delivering the medicine to them. So this situation is very complex, and it's truly heartbreaking, because these people need to come back home now. Every day that goes by, these people are dying. They're simply dying. We have no more time. We need to bring them back home now.
Thank you, Shell. You actually answered two of my next questions. We keep hearing more and more testimonies, especially from people who are released. Many of those testimonies are even more shocking than we anticipated, even for people who support Israel. And one of the examples is your visit to the university in Krakow, where you spoke to the Jewish studies students who were so shocked after seeing the 5-minute movie. They were not really able to ask any questions because they were so shocked and surprised. And we think that people like this should know what happened on October 7. When you're speaking to foreign officials and the international media, because I know you do a lot of international interviews, and when you talk about the atrocities, how do you decide what testimonies to share, and how does your international partners react?
Well, you know, in the beginning, it was very difficult for me to talk about this and to get into details, because I felt like I have to protect everyone from the truth. But very quickly, I realized that I have to talk about what happened. The world needs to know what truly happened on October 7th. And, you know, these women went through this. So who am I to, you know, not to watch these videos and represent them? It's my obligation to represent them, and therefore I have to watch these materials. I've been exposed to everything, as you can probably imagine. And so in the beginning, it was difficult for me to share, but then I realized that I have to share, because there is so much denial going on, and people don't really understand what truly happened here on October 7th. So when I went to Poland, and also when I went to Berlin and Paris, I prepared a short video, a 6-minute video. And as you probably understand, 6 minutes is truly, it's nothing. It's a small portion of the materials that we have. Of course, I watched the 47-minute film that the IDF has prepared, and that is only 5% of the materials that we have. So these materials are very, very graphic and very difficult to watch, but I prepared this short video just to give people the sense of what happened on October 7th. And every time I would show them this video, the reaction was almost the same everywhere. First of all, people were shocked because they were not exposed to these materials. When you live in Israel, everybody's exposed to everything because the media here is talking about it, and we had Hamas issue these videos everywhere. And I want to remind everyone that on October 7th, Hamas was live streaming all these materials on social media. They took the phones of the victims and they live streamed killing them. So we had family members in Israel who were watching their loved ones being murdered live. Just imagine, this sounds like science fiction. It doesn't sound like reality. But there are a lot of materials going around. And I must say that after watching this short video of 6 minutes, I would see the change in people's attitude towards the subject, because when they saw some of the examples of what happened on October 7th, they realized that they were unaware of what's happening. And as I've said, media around the world is not exposing these materials enough. They're speaking about what's happening in Gaza. That's the narrative. So a lot of people tell me, we haven't seen these materials so far. This is the first time that we've seen something like this. So it's my obligation to show these materials and make people understand a little bit of what's happened on October 7th. And when you see on the video people who are beheaded or little children, you see the beds covered in blood, or you see young kids at the Nova Festival being slaughtered, you can't stay indifferent. You can't. You simply can't. If you're a human being, you cannot stay indifferent. So I went through some sort of an evolution myself. It was hard for me in the beginning, but now I speak about it everywhere I go, and I tell the people, I'm sorry that I have to show you and speak about these graphic things, but this is our reality. We owe it to these people to talk about this. And I must say, you probably heard about the articles that were published in the New York Times and Daily Mail, where they would tell stories of the victims. Excuse me. And we had some witnesses, mainly from the Nova Festival, who witnessed some of the gang rapes that went on and gave their testimonies to the police. And of course, we're collecting all the forensic evidence. We collected them from the bodies, unfortunately, in the first few weeks. And we're working on creating cases to take these people to court, because we have to take them to court both in Israel and internationally. And it's very difficult to collect the forensic evidence, because when you have 1,200 bodies and they were spread all around very different geographical parts of the country, and it was very difficult to identify the bodies because a lot of them were mutilated, a lot of them were burnt, many families were burnt alive, and it was a process, and it took time. By the way, I must say, when I talk about the sexual assault, that we saw patterns in different places, and we have some of the terrorists who gave their when they were investigated. You can see it on videos, by the way, it was published also. And they speak about the fact that they were instructed to use rape and sexual assault. So this was a method, this was a system of using sexual assault as war weapons. They had instructions within their pockets telling them to rape the women, to mutilate them. And we saw many instances where we had broken pelvises, bleeding groins. Of course, we had sharp objects in women's groins. We had a lot of women with their hands tied behind their back, and they were undressed. I heard a testimony this week of one of the very brave men who saved some of the kids from the Nova Festival. And he said that when he was driving around and trying to save people, he saw a lot of young women tied to trees. They tied them up to trees. Can you imagine this? I can't even describe what we are feeling as a nation when we hear these testimonies. And so, as you've just heard me speak about this, but I speak about everything. And if some of the people, it's too difficult for them and they want to leave, I tell them, it's fine. I'm not angry. It's okay. You can leave. But I have to speak up. I have to tell the truth. I have to speak up on behalf of these women. And I just want to share one short story of one of the articles that came out about a young woman. She was 34. I'm not saying her name on purpose, and you will understand in a second why. She was 34. She's a mother of 2 boys. She went to the Nova Festival with her husband. And unfortunately, she was raped in front of him. And then she was executed in front of her husband, and she was burnt alive. And he was murdered after she was murdered. And these 2 boys remained orphans. And there is a video of her that's going around the world, where you see her. She was wearing a black dress. She's the woman with a black dress. You've probably heard about her. And her dress was pulled up, and her hands were covering her eyes this way, and her body's burnt. And I felt horrible, because not only this woman was raped, not only she was murdered, she was also deprived from her privacy. You know, women who go through sexual assault, usually it takes them a long time to come forward and speak about this, to complain, to do something about it. And this woman was completely deprived of her privacy, and everybody around the world can see her video going around. And just imagine her 2 boys. This is the legacy of their mother, who will forever go around everywhere. So you cannot hide that anymore. And for me, it was very painful, because she symbolizes the cruelty that these monsters used against her and against many other women. And we also had a lot of young girls, as I said, in the kibbutzim next to the border, where the entire family was, of course, murdered, but they would separate the young girls from the rest of the families, and they found them in different rooms within the house. So a lot of families they were tied, with their hands were tied behind their backs, and they were burned alive together. And the young girls were in different rooms, and they found them usually with their hands behind their back and undressed, and with forensic evidence that shows us that they were raped. So just imagine the last moments of these young women who were separated from their families. They were raped, and then they were killed. It's absolutely horrific.
I actually wanted to ask you if in all this horror, what was, I would say, the most encouraging thing that you have experienced in your advocacy journey? Was there anything that was reassuring for you, or because I honestly cannot imagine you going, from one place to another and talking about this every single day. I know you do it, and I really admire you for it, but was there anything positive that, happened to you in this journey so far?
Well, there were a few things that were very encouraging. First of all, I want to thank you guys again, because you gave me the floor to come and speak to many different people around the world about this issue. And I also have a lot of delegations that come here to Israel, and I meet them and I talk to them as well. So I think I've met hundreds and hundreds of parliament members from around the world during these 5 months. And I feel honored that I have the opportunity to speak to people and tell the truth, tell the story. So I'm very grateful for that. I think the encouraging moments were, first of all, when you see the empathy of people, when you see their attitude change after they speak to you, after they meet you, and they realize what has happened. And sometimes from the outside, Israel seems very different. But when you come here, especially when you come here to Israel physically, and you see for your own eyes and you experience it, it's totally different. It's like watching a video and meeting a person, or doing a Zoom meeting like we're doing right now and meeting in person. It's 2 different things. So first of all, I invite you all to come to Israel. I'll be more than happy to host you and to meet you guys. But I think that after doing many meetings with different people, suddenly seeing them speak about it in their parliaments, in their speeches, or writing a post, or a video, or doing real action items, that was the most encouraging thing for me. I met one British Parliament member that I had a very good discussion with, and he came back to the UK and he spoke about this in the Parliament, and I was so moved because I felt like this is working. What we're doing is so important. I tell every person that I meet that they are our ambassadors, and each and every person who speaks about the things that happen in Israel is an ambassador for us, and he's doing a great service to the state of Israel. So I encourage you guys as well to use all your platforms. It could be just a dinner that you're having with your family. It could be speeches in parliaments. It could be conventions. It could be your social media. Any platform that you choose to use, it does service to us, and it's very important to us. And we need to spread the truth. We need to spread what has happened. And I need your help doing that, because I'm only one person. I'll do my best, I promise. I'll go anywhere in the world and I'll do it. But we need you guys to help us out with that.
And I can also assure you that all our audience that if you need more information, you can reach out to us. We'll be happy to share it with you.